Welcome to PodTox Episode 16. We have Heather as our guest today, and she's going to tell us all about her addiction, her recovery, and just she has started making content, especially on TikTok. And she has helped a lot of people. I personally think she is hilarious. She does a lot of little skits that are seriously my favorite. But yeah, she's an awesome person. We want to probably go ahead and start off with your childhood and just where kind of everything started.
Both of my parents struggle with alcohol use disorder. Now, they worked and kept up, they were on the end of the spectrum where they kept jobs and, nobody really knew that they had a problem besides the family. And when I was in kindergarten, I came home from school and my parents had split up and my mom had moved away. And come to find out later in life, my grandfather was on my dad's side, was the chief of police in our town. And he had threatened my mother if she didn't, which it was probably the best thing, that could have happened anyway. I was the third child. And by the time I was born, she was really, really bad. I can remember it, and I left her when I was 6. So, and then immediately my dad married my stepmonster. That's what I call her. She is diagnosed narcissist personality disorder. And I don't know if you guys have dealt with that much, but it literally gives you brain damage. And then at 18, she had kicked me out. So I was used to living in fight or flight mode my entire life, and then all of a sudden at 18, I was just thrown into the world with no family, just crazy. But I digress.
You didn't have the coping skills.
Nothing. I had no skills. She kept us isolated, away from everybody. I wasn't allowed to leave the house except to go to school. And then once I got a job, so I had no skills about life at all, so my stepmother and my father ended up raising me. My father worked a lot, all the time. If we saw him 45 minutes a week, that was a lot. So my stepmother basically raised us, and she was just not a nice person. And she also has alcohol use disorder. So I was around that scene my whole life, and I always thought, as long as I don't become an alcoholic, I'll be okay. I knew nothing. My DOC were prescription medicine. I went to a pain management doctor or 2 or 3 or 4 a month for a very long time.
You live in Florida, correct? So I think that that's a major part of the story, because a lot down there, especially years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Clinic.
I mean, there was literally a pain management doctor with a pharmacy attached on every corner. Every corner. The county that I live in is ground zero for the opioid epidemic, the overdose epidemic.
Yep.
So I dabbled in illicit substances, but none of them ever took a hold of me like the painkillers and Xanax did. And okay, so we'll go back anyway so my stepmother raised me, blah, blah, blah. I got out. I was really, really against substances. I had boyfriends that I found out smoked cannabis and I would leave them. I was just really, really against substances. And then when I was 20, I got married and had my first daughter, Josie. That's who gave me my grandson. And at that time, I wasn't doing any substances, and I did not know that my husband was already addicted to painkillers. I didn't know any of the signs. Just didn't know anything about it. And I had never seen him sober. So I didn't know that there was a difference,
Had you ever drank at this time, or were you completely?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I drank. I actually met my husband at a bar. I would go to the club, I was 19, 20. I would go to the club and I would drink and get hungover as hell. And, I always got so hungover with alcohol, which now I'm grateful that I did. So it didn't become an issue. But I didn't really do any other substances. And then after I had my first daughter, I took a Percocet. And I cleaned my house and got everything done and made lists to do everything. And I was just like, holy shit, is this how everybody else feels normally?
I felt like super mom, right?
Yes. It was, and at this time I didn't know I had ADHD. I didn't, and I think that's what I was doing was,
self-medicating.
Yes. I felt like the person that I should be when I took an opioid. I felt like that's who I wanted to be. I just couldn't get there without it.
Well, and whenever you have a baby, it's like you're so tired and just drained, and you already, whether you're the mom or the dad, you feel like you're failing as it is at first, especially with your first child. So it's like then this magic pill comes along that makes everything better. It's a very vulnerable place.
And we all wish that we could keep achieving that feeling, but unfortunately, you never get back that feeling from that first time. You're constantly chasing it.
Constantly. Yeah.
Right.
So then in 2021, I gave birth to my second child, my son Jesse, and he passed away. And the doctors gave me Xanax.
I'm sorry.
But at that point, I still didn't get to where like I thought about taking them all the time. When that prescription was gone, I just didn't really think about it much anymore. But I knew that feeling of just calmness in my body, that it gives you. And then, so I would take, at this time, I would just take like a perk 10 or something occasionally, nothing, out of hand. I didn't even know about getting addicted to painkillers or Xanax, or I just wasn't educated on any of that. So fast forward to after I had my last son, I had some issues with my C-section, and they gave me Oxy 40s after, which was quite a bit, but and I think that's when, this was 2005, and I think that's when it started where I was taking more regularly, still not physically dependent, and I didn't think about it all the time, but it was becoming, a more regular thing.
Now, did your husband know at the time that you were doing this? Because he had his own separate thing going on. Did you guys use together at this time?
We didn't really use together, I guess you could say, because we didn't really talk about using them. I didn't know what he was taking. And actually, I started going to the doctor and getting perks myself, and I would get rid of most of them, So that's when I got introduced to the making money part of that, going to the doctor and stuff like that. And by 2006, I was going to 4 doctors a month. And they getting Oxy 80s from all of them, 120 bars of Xanax, 240 Roxy 30s, Somas. From any doctor down here, you could get any fentanyl patches, anything.
What do you think could have changed that from the start? Once you got those Oxy 40s and maybe you're on them for like 2 or 3 weeks, do you think there could have been like you go see a counselor and talk about whether you're having any issues, or do these pills make you feel good, or like how things work? Do you think something like that would have helped, or was there no stopping it?
I think definitely if I could have talked to somebody about it, it would have helped. But because of stigma and shame that comes with substance use, I thought that I had this big secret. I mean, my family knew and stuff, but I didn't realize that everybody around me knew too. But I do have to say, by that time, the money part of it was so good that I'm not even sure. This probably sounds horrible, but I'm not even sure if I would have went to look for help. But
Right.
maybe if somebody would have intervened and said, look, then maybe I could have stopped before I ended up stopping my job. I got fired from my job, so I just went to stick into that the full time and stuff. So I think the money part was also a big part, but definitely, just not being able to talk about it with anybody.
All the pain that you were feeling, you just internalized it and self-medicated at that time.
Yep, I did.
And then the money became almost like a secondary addiction, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, because the money was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so easy that. And after I got fired from that job, I had a few little jobs, but nothing to write home about, because I didn't need to. And that really made me lose respect for money, on earning money. And money didn't really mean anything to me because it was just so there, that really hurt me a lot. Not working for all those years too hurt me, with nobody wanting to give me employment. Thank goodness I'm employed now. But it took me like a year and 8 months into recovery of every day applying for jobs to get this job. So, yeah, I isolated myself a lot during active use. I didn't go out much, and because I had my own supply, I had a few other people that also went to the doctor, and we all kind of just helped each other out, including my husband, so none of us had to be sick very often. And I didn't have to go do shady things to get my supply.
You always had an abundance of money and supply.
Yeah.
But this was different times, guys. This was years ago.
Years, yeah. We're talking 2005, 2006, 2007, yeah.
Right.
That was, definitely different times.
How much were you taking per day?
At that time, when I was seeing 4 doctors a month, I was taking at least 15 Oxy 80s, probably 50 Roxy 30s, 15 bars of Xanax a day. I was up there. I mean, I woke up and I had it ready on my nightstand.
Did the Xanax give you an alter ego, an alter personality? Did it make you want to steal and do things that you normally didn't do?
20 minutes after taking them, I'm a completely different person. Right. And I would tell myself, I'm not going to do that this time. I'm not going to do that. But yes.
And then the soma as well. Did you put yourself in soma comas where you were like,
Actually, I didn't end up really messing with those because my husband did. And it would scare me so bad because, your heart's a muscle, and it was just different than like a Xanax nod. That soma coma, and so I was more like the babysitter with the somas when people would, party with those. So yeah, I didn't, but I saw people that I thought were just gone from taking too many somas. Then they put in the system down here in Florida where you couldn't doctor shop anymore. So it was like one day I was seeing 4 doctors a month and the next one doctor, but through all that time of doctors and stuff, I had a lot of like pharmacy trauma and doctor trauma, because I would go like this Walgreens, actually the biggest one in our town. There's a huge lawsuit going for them. You could go there and get anything you wanted, but you had to stand in line for like 4 hours.
We would have waited gracefully for 4 hours.
Yeah. So then after I was at that time, I was just doing it nasally. And then it was probably about 2013 or 2014. My husband and I were separated. We were on again, off again a lot throughout our active use for obvious reasons. And I walked into his house and he was using a needle, and it was methamphetamine, which I didn't even know he was doing. I didn't really know much about that one either, because like I said, I isolated myself. So I wasn't around a lot of people that did illicit substances. I was more around the people that did pharmaceuticals, you know? And I immediately was like, I am trying that. And he begged me not to. And at that point, we like came to an agreement and promised each other that we would never try H. That would be our one thing that we never tried. And I kept that promise to him, but he did not keep that promise to me. So, and the thing, and what's weird, not weird, but H was probably like one of the, it was besides psychedelics, it was the only thing not in his system. For anybody that doesn't know, I lost my husband in 2020 to an overdose. I found him with the needle still in his arm, standing, and he was still standing up.
Take your time.
And but so it ended up, being the fentanyl that got him. He didn't even, there was still 3/4 of the medicine in the syringe that was in his arm. So he only got 1/4 of it out, if it was full, before his heart exploded.
What did you do?
I went right back outside, and I just remember screaming and falling to the ground.
Was anyone with you?
Yes, a friend of mine was with me, an older man. He's gone now, but he was the one that drove me over there. So he's the one that ended up calling 911 and stuff. By the time I became aware again of what was going on, the cops were already there. And it was roped off and everything. And I immediately got up and went to my purse and took a handful of substances. And that was the first and only time that I overdosed. Thank goodness Narcan was there. Obviously, I wasn't thinking, I don't remember thinking, I want this to be over. I don't want to be here anymore. But with the amount that I took, I don't know what I was thinking.
You wanted the pain to go away. That's what you wanted. You didn't want to feel what was right in front of you.
Yeah, no.
Anyone that's addicted would have done the same thing.
Were you worried you were gonna get caught up or anything just because all the attention was on the house?
They were really cool. They obviously could tell that I was under the influence. I didn't overdose there. It was when I got back to my house. I'm not sure how long I stayed there after that. But I went home and talked to my son and daughter and everything, and they left. And that's when I swallowed a bunch more, apparently, which I don't remember doing. And that was actually a bunch of Soma as well. So the person that was with me was really alarmed because I didn't normally do those. So there was, different things going on. But he Narcaned me, and boy, pooh, I got that's awful.
You got feisty, I bet.
That withdrawal I put you in. And I didn't really, at that point, know anything about Narcan, or I didn't even know it was just for opioids. I just thought it was for drugs. But at the pain management doctors, they make you get a prescription for that, which I think is really good.
I think that's amazing that they do that as a precautionary thing.
Did you ever have any time before all this happened that you were like, either you or your husband, you were like, okay, maybe this is getting out of hand, or like one of those times you got sick because you couldn't get something? Did you think about trying to stop or just?
I thought about it a lot. I actually left the state 2 different times to try to, stop using. And one time I made the mistake of going up to my father's where my stepmother was at. But I was just so, just somebody please help me, because I can't do that. I don't know what to do. I don't know, just begging for help. And I was shamed and treated like crap at the hospital up there, which my dad called 911 because the cramping and stuff was so bad that I looked like I was like possessed and just screaming. The withdrawal, my potassium was really, really low.
That's happened to me before, and you kind of lose sense of reality when your potassium's low. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I definitely did. It was really bad. I was just screaming. And I can remember being in the ambulance, and my dad had given them my bag that had all of my bottles in it, which, the narcotics were obviously empty. But and I had an antidepressant from a psychiatrist or psychologist, and then I had painkillers from a pain management doctor. And I can remember the entire ride there, which was like 20 minutes in an ambulance. It was far. They were right in front of me talking about how she must go doctor shopping, and talking about how those people are just wastes in society. It was
all that just literally happened with your husband. They're right there.
I'm sorry. This was in like 2014 or 2015 when I went up to South Carolina.
Okay.
So my husband had stayed in Florida with our oldest daughter, and I had moved. Oh no, I'm sorry. When I went to South Carolina, all 3 of my kids came with me. A couple years before that, I had went to Ohio for 6 months and stayed with a friend. And that's when Tim stayed down here with our oldest daughter. And I was able to stop using substances up there, because I didn't have the access to them. I didn't know people, but I didn't do any other work for recovery. I didn't know about doing other work, for recovery and stuff. So I just still, that entire 6 months, I sat up there not working, isolated, thinking about substances, you know? And I knew probably the last month I was there, I knew that once I got back home, I was going to immediately start again.
How did you make it through the withdrawal while you were there, like without having access?
It was awful. Seizures.
Cold turkey, basically?
Cold turkeyed it, yeah. I cold turkeyed quite a few times. I have gone through withdraw for like a few days at a time up until like when I did those a lot, like between
benzos was an extremely long withdrawal for me. Was it for you?
Oh yeah. At the 6 months in Ohio, I was still withdrawing. The 1 month I stayed in South Carolina, I was still detoxing, not sleeping from the Xanax. I mean, the Xanax, I think, definitely made it the worst.
I agree. It puts like the icing on the cake for it.
Yeah, I lost touch with reality, hallucinations, seizures.
Psychosis.
Yes. You know what's weird? Anytime that I was on a really high dose of benzos and I had to stop cold turkey, I always got like this out of touch with reality that the world was ending.
Same thing. You and I have discussed this before. And
Okay.
a weird smell, right? You smell like that burning smell.
Yes, that smell. Anytime I was withdrawing off of benzos, at least in my sleep, I would smell that smell. Like
That
it
smell
smelled
is
like
the worst.
dust to me.
It smells like your brain's rotten in your head.
Yes. I literally thought I was smelling myself unaliving.
Me too.
It was, yeah, but that thinking the world's gonna end. The first time I ever detoxed off of benzos and had the seizures, and I mean just really, really bad. I gathered my kids up together because I thought the world was coming to an end, and put us all in the shower. And, even my sister, who wasn't detoxing or anything, was there, and she was just going along with it because she said I was so I can remember seeing it on the television, them saying, "Run for your lives, the world is coming to an end."
And you had no concept of time, reality, right? That's how I was. I even lost touch with I was peeing myself.
Yeah.
Like I felt like my body was just completely, I felt like I was that close.
Yeah, I thought somebody stole my uterus and I called the police.
Listen, Heather, I believe it. I'm telling you, it puts you on another level of woo.
Right. How much were you taking?
I was taking the same as you, 15, I would take 5, 6 bars at a time. Then 20 minutes later, take another 5 or 6 of the 2 milligram Xanax bars, to the point where I was going through 90 in 3 days.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Because once you take some, you take more and more.
Yeah.
And
then I started calling in scripts.
Did you ever
do
have a
that?
time where you felt like you wanted to unalive, or you tried to unalive yourself because of the bars? That was my biggest issue. And one of my buddies that we used to always get them together, we just had all types of very intrusive thoughts.
I remember wishing I would.
Right.
But I didn't.
You just don't remember. You don't remember what you just took. You completely have no recollection, and you want to keep chasing that first feeling that you got.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you never get it. Just that. Oh, so going back to the story. Sorry, guys. I know I'm all over the place.
No.
Going back to the story of the first time I used IV, that was methamphetamine, and for a few years, I would go on little benders with that occasionally, not regularly or anything, but it did lead me to using my morphine intravenously that I was getting from the doctor at that time, and Dilaudid. But those weren't really my thing. I was more of oxycodone blues, we called them. That was my favorite. But I didn't do those through IV because I just never felt anything. I just struggled and struggled. I know you wanted to talk about DCF. About 3 weeks before my husband passed, I was still living with him because, I had actually moved out away from my husband 5 days before he passed away. And as I was walking out the door, he said to me, "Heather, if you leave, I'm gonna unalive." And then 5 days later, I found him. But CPS had come to my house a few weeks before that. A family member had actually called. And because they were prescribed to me, I passed the drug test, and there was no reason that they could take my son from me. He was the only one living at home at that time. But this DCF worker lied and said I failed my drug test and everything. Thank goodness I had kept records. I took pictures, and I never kept records with anything. I had had a few experiences with them in the past, but again, because all of my substances were prescribed, and I lucked out. It was never when I was using anything else. They could never even come back a second time.
You and
So-
I have such a similar story with that. It's crazy. And they put that fear inside your head. So that's probably why you started documenting everything. You're like, nah, I'm not going to allow these people to come into my life.
Yeah, I could tell this lady was just something just said to me, Heather, and if I have found out anything in life, it's go with my gut feeling.
Right.
And thank goodness I did. And she ended up getting fired.
Thank God.
They had to look into over 200 more cases after this was all brought to light. And they her supervisor ended up calling me, just apologizing profusely. And because she had started a case and was lying, and like I said, and everything, and I had brought up all the proof. Now, if we're going to be honest, my son probably shouldn't have been in that situation.
Right. But at the same
I'm not
time,
saying that the state would have been the best thing for him.
Right.
But it was not a good situation. I wouldn't be where I'm at today, I believe, if my husband was still here, though. So we were too into it together.
You guys were almost addicted to each other. I've had a relationship like that where you're so codependent, and it's like you don't want to leave that person. The person doesn't want to leave you. It's ride or die.
No matter how many times we fought, what we did to each other, he was my person.
Well, and I talk about that all the time. Just the thing that usually gets to me the most and used to get to me the most, I could survive anything. And whenever I first started recovery, if a family member passed or something, I would probably be okay and I wouldn't need to use. But if me and my wife got in a fight or something was wrong there, that's when I would instantly hop on whatever I could and I would just spiral out of control. It's something about the relationship. It's like you have to have them.
Yeah, especially when you use together.
Trauma bonds is what I've learned over the years. You form trauma bonds with people because it's like you have trauma and you guys are so intertangled in the same BS all the time.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, we were. The day after I found my husband, I told myself, probably for the first time ever, Heather, you have to fucking do this or your kids are going to be, without both of you for sure. I can't imagine where I'd be if I was still using. I don't believe in rock bottoms per se, because I definitely could have lost a lot more. I still had my family. I had a place to live. It definitely could have been a lot worse, but if I wouldn't have stopped, I can't, especially not having, so 6 months after Tim died, the older guy that I was telling you that had driven me there that day, he died, not of an overdose, of other related things. So both of my people that were kind of like my security, were gone with drugs. My security with substances were gone. And all of a sudden I had to figure all this shit out myself, know? And I was just like, what? Wait, this is what people have to do all the time. And then I lost my pain management doctor. And yeah, that was hard, but I'm so grateful.
It seems like everything happened to help you to stand on your own 2 feet almost. Like the universe
was throwing shit at me. Yeah, right. That's what I always say. She was like, here's another one. And I'm glad that happened, because at that time I was trying to convince myself that I could stop using and just sell them and keep the money. And I wasn't even making any money at that point, because I either owed out, and then I took so many that first 3 or 4 days after my appointment, and then what I got rid of, I wasn't even making any money, but I was telling myself, I needed that. So I could have gone to another pain management doctor, because there's still a dime a dozen down here. But I downloaded TikTok. And my son did actually. He knew I was pretty much not using when I didn't have any money and nobody was sharing, but any chance I could, I would consume substances, And my son downloaded TikTok for me, and that night I came across who is now my best friend on the planet, Jackie's video of her dosing Suboxone. I had never heard of Suboxone. I had never even really heard of Matt. I knew what the methadone clinic was, but the few people that I knew that went there didn't stop using their other substances. So I didn't realize there was people that really went there and a whole program that was helping them. You know?
Didn't realize recovery was truly coming out of there.
Yeah, I did. So I ended up seeing her video, left her a comment or something, and we ended up talking. She told me what it was. I did a little bit of research. The very next day, I made an appointment with QuickMD, and I had my last hurrah that night. You gotta have that last. I'm all for having that last hurrah. And I told myself, if this works as good as what you've been reading, Heather, this is it. This is it. And it worked.
Was there ever a time when you first got on Suboxone where because when you're starting to learn how to manage your meds after abusing medication for so many years, did you have a hard time taking that correctly? Did you want to double up the dose? Did you want to double up the films at first? Because I know that I did that.
Well, what I did, because I was hell-bent on not running out. I was not going to go through friggin' withdrawals again, because by the time I got on Suboxone, I wasn't as dependent on the opioids anymore. Okay. I would feel crappy for a few days, but nothing like, just 6 months before.
Right.
And so what I did when I found out, that people, that a lot of it is about dosing, just taking something, that whole habit that you have to get out of. They prescribed me 3 8-milligram strips, and I would cut them in half to where I could dose 6 times a day if I needed to. Which I did at first because I was just all over the place. I didn't.
But that's okay. I mean, that's not a big deal. That's not really misusing your meds or anything. I know plenty of people that need to do stuff like that.
And actually, it was one of the doctors through QuickMD that recommended that I do that. I didn't.
Nichols also said that about taking the doses, and splitting it up a little bit more throughout the day.
Especially for pain, because you need that analgesic effect, which only lasts a few hours. So if that's what you need, then that's perfect. Right. I'm only kind of familiar with QuickMD. Did they have a doctor that actually sat there and talked to you?
No.
I had a whole bunch of questions about that because I'm always curious when people get into subs and everything, how much their doctors actually told them. Because I think that's one of the big issues and one of the big stigmas against Matt. There's so much being withheld that it's,
But I also feel like it's the patient's responsibility to do their own research as well. You need to be responsible for your own medication and recovery.
Sure. And the biggest thing with that is they hand it out in detox facilities so much, you can't research. Because that's what happened with me. I was told that I had to take this stuff and it was going to save me, and that was it. But also online, finding the actual information, the thing about dry mouth and all that, it was actually pretty hard to find that until 8 months ago, 10 months ago, and then they started really sharing it. So there are also those things that you can't find.
No, I agree with both sides, but I just think as a patient, you need to be extremely cautious about what you're putting into your body. But in the beginning of recovery, a lot of people aren't at that place mentally yet either.
Oh yeah, they just want to feel better.
Right.
That's it.
And it does. It makes you feel better for sure. Now, let's put it this way. My appointments through QuickMD every month are never over 2 minutes. I had to do the therapy and stuff myself. You know, they do require you do that, but it's not included in the $99 fee or in their program. You know, they don't have that's something through QuickMD that you're responsible to do on your own.
Now, through QuickMD, if you had an emergency, is it very hard to get in touch with the doctor? Is it hard to get them on the phone about oh, my script can't be filled at so-and-so. I need a new, with the digital scripts, e-scripts?
It's not too hard. Now, it depends on what you would consider hard, I guess, because the only issues that I've had since being on Suboxone has never been the medicine's fault. It's either them taking, taking 2 days or 2.5 days to get back when it's something like this and you're not supposed to pick up until you're out anyway, can be devastating.
Right.
But my biggest problem though, they're pretty decent about it. I have one time had to pay for a whole nother appointment to be able to talk to somebody about it.
That's ridiculous.
And then they refunded, I think, half or 60 out of the 100 back. And that pissed me off. I thought that was ridiculous, but I will say, when I get on there, I don't set my appointments ahead of time because you have to pay, and I'm usually just getting the money then. I'm a broke bitch. And I can usually see a doctor within a few hours.
Well, that's good. That's important to know.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of people that reach out to me that don't have insurance that are looking for a way to get on Suboxone. And, I don't know, sometimes I don't know about those type of places and doctors.
They didn't even actually ask me. They had asked me in the initial paperwork stuff, what substances I was taking and how much and everything. And I had told them what the doctor was prescribing me and stuff, but they didn't even make me show proof of that. And at first I was like, oh, geez, that's not very good. But then I thought, you know what? If somebody is going to QuickMD to get subs, they probably are looking to get better.
Right.
If they're wanting to make big bucks or something, they're going to go get the good stuff. They're not going to go, to a sub doctor to try to get Suboxone. So I'm actually glad that the access is as easy as it is.
Did they ever do anything for accountability? I know my doctor, I would get called back. I would have to give the wrappers. I would have to show what ones were open, what ones were closed. They would count them out in front of me. They matched there's a little lot number on the bottom. They made sure that it came from the same batch of medicine, that I wasn't throwing other ones in there. They were very strict, but that accountability is what kept me on the straight and narrow.
I have UAs through them.
Okay.
It just comes to my house. So I could be shady with it if I wanted to. But again, I am here to get better.
And you're paying for it. It's like, why would you pay for something and then do the wrong thing? Makes no sense.
Yeah. So I always felt good every time I passed a drug test.
Me too. Isn't it the best feeling when you're like, damn, I'll piss in front of anybody right now. Like, come on, let's do it.
I am clipping that, by the way.
I take pictures and everything.
Hey, there's no shame anymore. I'm not ashamed of anything. Once you have kids, right, Heather? There's no shame in your game with anything.
No shame.
Sorry.
Now, so you got on QuickMD and all that, and you got on a dose that was at least stable. Did you, like, for that first little bit, did you have any, I guess, period where you felt kind of cruddy or anything like that? Because some people, the subs end up working like right away. They're completely better, no issues. And then I've talked to a couple of people where it takes like 3-4 days.
I immediately felt amazing. Because like I said, though, my tolerance had gone down a lot over those last few months.
Yep.
And and 24 milligrams of Suboxone is a lot when you don't have, and I had never done fentanyl or anything. From what I understand, with fentanyl, makes your tolerance so high that sometimes even 3 Suboxone isn't enough to keep the withdrawals away.
A lot of doctors don't understand that, though, because even here, my doctors never wanted to go above 16 milligrams. It was just something that they always said. We don't go above 16 and that's it, except if you're pregnant. Now, I happen to be pregnant quite a few times, so I did go up to 24. But after that, they want you down to 16 again.
Really? I wonder why.
I don't know. That's how my doctor always was. It was like their policy.
Yeah, that's like a statewide thing for some places. And 16 isn't enough for everybody.
You're right. It's not.
No, I don't. I think that the 3 at first were perfect for me. I think that was perfect. Now, some days I would take less. I think looking back now, just to prove to myself that it was there and I wasn't, because at that time I was starting to see videos, again, I was so new to TikTok, of people bashing, saying, the withdrawals are 100 times worse than fentanyl and just all this stuff. So I wanted to make sure to myself that I wasn't abusing them or feeling something that I was going to chase from them. Now, since then, I have tapered myself down to 1 8 milligram strip a day. So, and I felt no withdrawal.
That's amazing.
Anxiety. But my anxiety is so through the roof anyway. And I think being on Xanax for so long makes that worse now.
Right.
Because that anxiety was numbed.
It's like a rebound afterwards, like your boom, anxiety, and you can't get rid of it.
Oh, yeah. In early recovery, at least the first year, I had at least 1 full-blown panic attack every single day. And I hadn't had those in a while because of the benzos.
Right. Were you able to get your ADHD ever treated?
No.
No, me either.
I don't have insurance now, and I just can't afford to.
Do you feel like the subs help with that?
I don't know, because I always feel bad when people ask me what the Suboxone helps with and stuff, because I don't really know, because I went from using other opioids to that and I haven't been without anything. Now I am 10 days off of my Wellbutrin that I quit cold turkey, and I don't think I'm having any effects except a little more anxiety than normal either from that. So I think I'm going to stay off of that. But why? Do you have ADHD, Kyle?
No, I've talked to so many people now. I've heard just about every scenario. I've had a couple people say that it actually, they had severe ADHD and methadone helped tremendously for some people. And then subs have helped quite a few people. Just, I don't know, it helps them not fidget so much. It gives a little bit more focus, and they don't feel like they have to move every second. But yeah.
That's me. I'm constantly I hate it.
And that would make sense because it is an opioid. And if the other opioids, treat the ADHD a little bit, then it would make sense that Suboxone would. Now, my ADHD is bad, really bad. I mean, I every time I am looking for something, I end up searching around the entire house, and it's exactly where I started. Do you
That's
do
like
that?
me. I'll be on my phone looking for my phone as it's up to my ear. And my kids are like, Mom, you're always looking for something. But that's just how my brain works. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't. If I don't sit there and write something down and look at the paper and stuff while I'm doing it, I just cannot complete tasks.
Yeah,
It's
that's how
horrible.
I am. Like, I can't read a book like Dr. Alfrey last week. I could not read his book, but I listened to the audio book, and that worked for me.
Yeah, I can read usually if I'm really interested in the book and I get into it, but I grew up reading a lot because I was grounded to my room all the time. So that's what we did was we read a lot, you know.
So now that I mean, once you got on Matt and everything, what were your coping skills? Especially you had everything that happened with your husband and all that. Like, how did you actually balance that out so it didn't cause any like risk of relapse for a while?
I'm not sure. I think, Kyle, I was so sick and tired of the whole game, whatever you want to
The
call it.
lifestyle. You were sick of the lifestyle.
I was. As much
Burnout.
at the same time, I missed the process. As dumb as that may sound, in the beginning, the only times I really wanted to relapse, except Xanax, because I don't have a MAT medication. I wish they had a MAT medication for benzos.
I know. I've always said that myself. As
Yes.
well as methadone. I wish that they had something that made it easier to go off of methadone if people want to do that, like Sublocade.
Yeah.
Methadone.
Well, hopefully now that Matt is getting bigger and stuff, hopefully they'll come up with something. You know, I don't know if you guys follow Eddie. He does those little Eddie's dad skits. He takes Adderall for his methamphetamine use disorder. So that's like a MAT medication.
Technically, any medication that you're taking to help prevent use of a substance, whether you're like stopping your anxiety because that's what used to cause you to use, that's a MAT medication. It's just they've turned methadone and subs into the only things, and it's like that's not how it works.
No, it's not. There's so many options out there. So many. I know you guys follow Accountabro, and he talks about a lot of different like plant meds and different things that I also use cannabis in my recovery. I didn't use cannabis when I was actively, I mean, occasionally if somebody was smoking, I would hit it or something, but it was never really in my, thing. So I
How
use
long
that
into your
now.
recovery journey did you introduce cannabis?
A week.
Okay. And what made you decide to do that?
My friend Mickey, who he actually might be in here. That's who I live with now.
Okay.
He is a big pothead. He's got long white hair and he's just smoked pot forever. We actually used together and ended up getting into recovery together. So
love
it's
that.
really nice to live with somebody that's also going through it. He's on medicated assisted treatment too. He's a mailman, and his work actually provides for substance use disorder, provides a MAT program.
Wow.
It's like, yay.
That's amazing. More companies should do that because there are so many people struggling that, aren't very vocal about it because they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, they're afraid of the stigma, they're afraid of the medication. But we're all here to tell you, don't be afraid of something that could completely change your whole life.
Yes, don't be afraid just because that's what society makes you want to feel. We have been indoctrinated to believe these things, and stigma holds so many people back. So
What got you into harm reduction?
once I got on TikTok, I always had like my thoughts aligned with most of the harm reduction stuff anyway. I just didn't know that harm reduction was a thing, but like all of that, all of the stuff that I've been learning, I 100% believe is the answer.
Right.
I really, really do. I don't know if you guys saw, it was a while back. I duetted, it was like the president of another country or something had gave this speech about the war on drugs. And he was basically saying what we need is harm reduction without saying the words harm reduction, love. People need love. And that's what harm reduction is all about, meeting people where they're at. It does, whether they're still using, they're not using, whatever, whatever it is, wherever they're at, and I know a lot of people have a problem with harm reduction and they think it's enabling, but I think enabling is a word that has been hijacked by the 12 steps, and it has been brought into this to make families, push tough love on their family member. And I do not believe in tough love at all.
For some people, it can kind of wake them up, I guess, but for most people, it doesn't. Like, I was just on the phone. I had a mom call me whose son is struggling, and she was so upset with herself because she was enabling her son by buying him food. No. And it's like, I'm sorry, but it's not enabling. It's like, yeah, we're going to get him in rehab and everything like that. And I was like, that's perfect. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of that. Enabling is whenever you say, hey, I'm going to drive you for 2 hours so you can get to the next dealer and do your thing. Like that.
And money.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But see, that's how people have been programmed to think, that feeding their loved one is enabling. That blows my fucking mind. Not giving your loved one a shower, even giving them your couch to sleep on for a night so that they're not frozen outside. Now, of course, it's also important to set boundaries for yourself. I have somebody really important to me right now struggling, and I could not imagine not inviting her to Thanksgiving or telling her that she couldn't come to my house to sleep when she had nowhere to sleep, or that she couldn't come eat dinner, but people have been programmed to think that that's what they need to do to make their loved one get better. And, never ever has anybody that lost their child been like, I should have done tough love. Shout out to my husband's parents. Up until the end, they supported him. Of course, they wanted him, to find recovery and stuff, but they supported him no matter what. And he died knowing that his parents loved him very, very much, and he never had to be homeless or anything like that because they always opened their home to him.
How did you deal with the aftermath of your husband's death with your children? Like, how that had to have been such a difficult thing for you as a mother. And also them seeing you trying to do the right thing, and you're...
I did therapy the first year and a half I was on that. And I really think that's what made that, and the Suboxone, but more the therapy is what made me successful this time. Just working on things. I do a lot of journaling. I actually want to that reminds me, I need to order it, one of those shadow work journals. Have you guys done, have you done it?
No, I've been seeing it going around though, and I would love to order one.
Yeah, I want to order one too. And I would love to do that. I think that could be really good. I handled it very poorly with my children.
Is there a right way to handle that, though?
Right.
I mean,
yeah,
I don't think that there's any right or wrong way. I mean,
yeah, I was so shocked, and like I said, that's when I tried to stop using substances, was the next day. So after 15 years of all the time taking copious amounts, all of a sudden, so for that year and a half, from the time I lost him until I got on Matt, was a year and a half. And I was like out of my noggin that whole entire time. I mean, out of my mind. I didn't trust myself. I would like come out of it in the middle of the night and be walking my neighborhood. I mean, I was really worried that I was like gone forever, up here.
I've had that feeling where you're in your body and you're scared you're never going to go back to what you used to be previously.
Yeah.
I think that's a super common thing for anyone that's been using for a prolonged period of time, because it's like you just feel like you have to have done something.
Yeah, I do have a lot of long term or things that I know, like the stalling when I talk. I forget things a lot. I forget what I'm talking about. I know that has to be from years of substance use. And then I had the substance abuse, not use. And then I had the problem of isolating myself. So I had to learn when I got on TikTok, like how to socialize again.
Well, and even not isolated, whenever you go so long and you have this mask on that was from the pills and everything. I mean, on the pills, you're a superhero and can talk to whoever you want. So that mask is gone, and it's just like, I don't even want to say hello to anybody else. Like it's weird.
Yeah, I had to start like forcing myself to leave the house. I had a period probably 5 or 6 years before I stopped, where for like an entire year, the only time I left the house was to go to the doctor and pharmacy. Everybody came over. The people that I did see came to my house. When I first got into recovery, I was scared because, like you said, Kyle, that I was scared I was going to go back to that. And it was hard to get out of that once you're safe in your little space. I even actually have right here on the top of my back is like a curvature from nodding so much. I would just lay in my bed, like nodded out.
You used to sit in your bed, sitting straight up like this. That's what I used to do. I would never want to lay my head down. I would always want to remain in an upright position because I never wanted it to end.
Right. Is that what it was?
That's what I feel like it was. Like I wanted to keep that feeling. So I knew if I hit the pillow, I was done. So I would sit up.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I would sit up too. I would find myself a lot, especially once I started using IV. I found myself a lot on the toilet, passed out. A lot. Way too much. But so now I have like a permanent, that's why my head is like so much more forward than my back because of that. So that's definitely a long lasting effect. But I was watching this video about how everybody is going to be like this in, our whole species from phones in like 15 years. So I've been doing the whole laying off the side of your bed and laying your head there. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but to help prevent that from happening. But mine is already so bad.
Did you end up having any complications from the IV use?
I had some misses, but I have these little cysts. I can't even pronounce the name of them. These little cysts. I'm sure you guys have noticed them in my videos before. It's very prominent on they're actually all over my body, but they're the worst on my legs and arms. So those little, I don't know if you can see it there, but like that's a scar. But all these see all those bumps you see right there and stuff? Those are from cysts. But he said they're very common. There's nothing I can do to stop them from happening.
But you know what? If that's all you have and you're still alive, well, right, breathing, here to share your story,
yeah,
it is what it is, right?
Yeah, I'm good. I did have misses before that would get, a little bit like
infected, like an abscess.
Yeah, not too bad, but I was at home doing it, so I was able to keep stuff pretty clean. I have the scars from using dull shit, which is where like harm reduction would have come into. But in Florida, you can actually buy needles like at pharmacies.
I have seen people be able to walk into the pharmacy and say like, "Oh, I have diabetes. I need a needle." Right?
That's what I would always say. Oh, I'm diabetic. And they're probably like, yeah, lady, whatever.
But you know what? They should look at it like this. You're going to use anyway. Do you want to go get a needle that's laying in a puddle outside in a parking lot? Or do you want to give the person a clean needle?
Exactly. A lot of people like act like, and this is more, I think, people that don't have experience with drug use like we do. They act like, supplying people with safe using supplies is like going to make people go and start using drugs.
Right.
Just because somebody has access to a clean pipe or a clean needle doesn't mean they're going to start using substances, and I think that's what a lot of outsiders views with harm reduction, where they don't think it's a good idea because they think and they just think that we should just be blown off the planet anyway, but safe supplies way lowers the chance of spreading diseases, like HIV or Hep C and things like that, and ups people's chances. They're like 5 times more likely to go into treatment if they have gotten harm reduction services, but it's not all about pushing people into treatment.
Do you have a lot of harm reduction around you?
No, the closest one, and it's not even a big one to me, is Tampa, and that's like an hour away, and I don't have a car.
Yeah.
So I do some outreach like in my area for the unhoused people and stuff that I've gotten to know in my area, but I can't do much in that way of it because I just don't have the way to get there. I don't have a lot of friends in real life anymore.
You have us. You have us. I have a question with your grandson. What made you want to teach him how to use Narcan? Because I love that. I think that should be something that children should be taught in school. I know Megs is in here, and I know she posted about that as well. But I fully believe that with the supply out there and the amount of kids that are taking pills, and there's no experimenting anymore. It's not a thing.
So his mom and dad are both in the medical field. My daughter is a nurse, and his dad is an EMT firefighter. So they're already in the medical side, And I actually just got the idea. That's where I'm here right now. One day I was here with Foster, and I saw something about Narcan at schools, and I was looking at the people in the comments saying, that it could be dangerous to teach kids and this and that. So I just wanted to show people how easy it was, and that, and also start even at that young age, having it be a normal conversation in his life. I am very obviously loud about my recovery. All of these people saw me, and it was, the last 10 years there was no hiding it from anybody. So my whole family knew everything that was going on.
Did your kids end up having any issues with addiction, or did they completely stray away from it just because of how much you went through? Just talking about all this, I was wondering how much you actually had talked to them growing up, or what their viewpoint was.
I didn't talk to them as much as I should have, considering what they lived through. Again, at that time, with all the shame and stigma and stuff, I just didn't talk about it. They knew what was going on. They knew I was using substances. They didn't necessarily know my routes and things like that, but they were home with me. They saw everything. I didn't talk to them as much as I should have. I do now. My oldest daughter drinks occasionally and uses plant medicine occasionally. And my youngest son, he's just 18. So, he's starting off in life, but he swears that he's not going to end up. So I hope so. I've gotten him to where more I've convinced him to be the designated driver with his friends and the Narcan.
Love that.
You know, I'm a safe space for him and his friends.
I love that.
So, you know, they all have been given Narcan and, you know, and I actually had a mother that came back to my house and gave it back. And the thing is, I knew her kid was using substances. I know for a fact that but I couldn't tell the parents that, you know, but it was, I was really shocked. Maybe I should have asked first, but they're, you know, 18-year-old kids. I didn't really think about asking. I'm not sure if I would have, even if they were just 16 though. I just want it to be a normalized thing, you know? Oh, there's Narcan in the glove box.
Was it hard for you to reestablish your relationship with your children? Because for so many years, you were doing you. Now, when you're finally focused on them, was it hard to start to earn trust, to build trust, to reestablish?
Yes, it's still, you know, it's still going. They trust now that, you know, I'm going to stay off substances. They have had my back behind Matt the entire time, behind this whole thing. They have been amazing with everything, you know. But I thought when I first got into recovery, you know, that everything would just be perfect.
Me too. So there's like almost a false sense of like your kids are going to embrace you with a hug. They're going to come. It's a lot of hard work when you start rebuilding your life again and relationships. It takes time and effort.
Yes, it does. You know, I've had to start building, you know, adult relationships with them because they're adults now, you know, and it, you know, we hadn't had a real relationship in years.
Did it take time for your daughter to trust you to be alone with her child, like your grandson, or your relationship was already established?
It was already established. I was already in Foster's life. I watched him occasionally when I was still using. I just wouldn't be annihilated when I was doing it. And being a big part of Foster's life, I think, besides the MAT program, has been my biggest motivator in recovery. You know, I don't ever want him to see me like his mom had to. Actually, Kyle, you had said something earlier about when I realized it was a problem. I can remember one time when I dropped a blue in a 7-Eleven parking lot. And I didn't realize it until like 45 minutes after I got home. And I drove back to that parking lot,
right.
searched for it and found it and immediately threw it in my mouth. Even though I didn't want it. I wasn't abusing it. I was abusing them actually.
That force is so strong that it's like magnetic almost. Like you can't.
It was just like, oh, I got it. Thank goodness I got it, you know? And I think that was when I looked at myself and was like, oh shit. But I still didn't understand, you know, I can remember my stepmother saying stuff about, you know, my real mother being an alcoholic and, you know, how that ruined your life. But I didn't know anything about like withdrawal. Now, all these doctors that were giving me all of that fucking medicine every month, not one of them ever said to me, you know, your body will become physically dependent, which again, like you said, it's your job to research it. But
when you're caught up like that, you're not in that mentality of being able to research it almost. I understand that.
I feel like it's how you grew up too, because when I got on pain pills, whenever I first started taking them, I didn't do research and I didn't know squat about opiates, but I went to the doctor because I got hurt and I grew up knowing that I was supposed to trust doctors. So they said, take these. So I took them as prescribed and didn't think anything of it because why would a doctor not tell me a medication could have side effects? So
Have you ever had a doctor that got arrested? I've had 3 doctors that are locked up now because for overwriting prescriptions. Hey, they were my best friends. I was always over there.
Yes, I had a number of doctors and doctors that got arrested for sexual assault too.
See, that's a thing as well. A lot of people don't realize that was going on years ago.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
if you wanted a script, yep.
Oh yeah. I had this one doctor that he was awful, and he's in prison. He's in prison now for overwriting and for things that he ended up doing to women. And I had procedures done by him and stuff. And I knew he was shady, but he was giving me that script.
Right.
You know, so a little fingers on the nipple or something during a visit, you know. Okay. That's not really happening.
What is your future goals as far as like what you want for your recovery?
I definitely want to end up making a career out of something in like an alternative recovery kind of space.
Which is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
all right, I think it's time to call it.
Thank you.
Thank
you to
very
everybody
much
in the
for coming on,
comments.
Heather.
Thank
Everybody have a
you.
great
Thank
day.
you for
Love you.
everyone.